Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to replace the door lock actuator on a 2004 Toyota Sequoia. The process is exactly the same for any first generation Toyota Sequoia or Tundra. This includes the model years from 2001 through 2007. If you're new to the channel, welcome again, and do consider hitting the like and subscribe button down below if you'd like to see more of my automotive DIY content. If you're already a subscriber, I'd like to take this moment to thank you for your support. It really means a lot to me. So let's get right into it. Before we get started, a quick warning. Always disconnect the negative terminal of the battery before working with the door lock system. To replace the actuator, we have to insert our hands into the door panel where there are a lot of pinch points. If, for example, the window was to slide down when your hand was inside the door panel, it can cause a lot of injuries. Disconnecting the battery from the car will help avoid situations like these. The door lock actuator is a very common problem on many old Toyota or Lexus vehicles. Over time, moisture or debris enters the actuator assembly and causes it to go bad. This is quite annoying as you then have to go to the door in question and lock it manually. I'll be replacing the door lock actuator on my passenger side front door, but the process is the same for any door. The first thing to do is to remove the door panel, which is held in by a number of clips and screws. Use a thin plastic pry tool to get under the window control switch trim piece and pry upwards. Never use metal as this can damage the soft plastic. It can be on pretty tight, but eventually you should be able to snap it upwards. Removing the panel shows you this blue electrical connector that you have to remove. Simply push down on the plastic tab and pull to remove it. Next, we need to remove the trim piece surrounding the door handle. First, pry off this little trim piece, which exposes the Phillips screw that holds the whole trim piece in. After removing the Phillips screw, use a plastic pry tool again to pry the trim piece off. Next, use the pry tool again to remove this cover which exposes the Phillips screw. Next up is another plastic cover under which is another Phillips screw to remove. Pull out these two plastic screws on the side. Finally, we have this plastic trim piece which covers the tweeter assembly. The plastic pry tool is your best friend and it is pretty easy to get it off. Now we can go ahead and remove the door panel. All that's holding the door panel in is a number of push clips. You have to get your pry tool in between the panel and the door and pry outwards to loosen them. Go around the door with your pry tool and you should hear the clips releasing with a loud pop. Before you can completely remove the panel, you have to disconnect this electrical connector for the puddle light. To remove the door panel, you have to pull it upward so that it releases from the window trim area. Now we're able to see almost all parts of the door locking assembly. We have the door handle, which is connected to the door lock actuator through the steel cables, which in turn is connected to the door handle and the lock cylinder outside. Peel back the protective plastic cover so you can access the inside of the door panel. Remove this rubber grommet as this will give us better access to one of the bolts that we have to remove inside. The first thing we're gonna do is push the sliding window track out of the way so we can remove the door lock actuator. The track is held to the door by a number of 10mm bolts, as you can see. Now you can go ahead and pull the metal part of the track down so that only the rubber part is in the way, as you can see. Inside the door shell, there are 3 bolts that we have to remove. The bolt on the left, which is one of the 2 bolts holding the door handle to the door, is pretty easy to access. The other 2 bolts are a little more hidden away. This is the second bolt that holds the external door handle to the door, and this is the bolt that holds the lock cylinder to the door handle. The lock cylinder bolt can actually be removed later when we remove the door handle from the car. So now we're just going to be removing the 2 10mm bolts holding the external door handle to the door. The bolt on the left is very easy to remove. For the other bolt on the door handle, I use the closed side of a wrench to remove it. Once you remove these two bolts, you can pull the door handle away a little bit. As you can see, it is now much easier to get a 10mm wrench onto the bolt holding the lock cylinder to the door handle. Once you remove that bolt, the lock cylinder is completely separated from the handle. Now all we have to do is remove this plastic clip holding the locking rod to the door handle. To do this, simply pull upwards on the plastic clip so that it releases from the rod, and then you can pull out the door handle sideways. Now the door handle is completely free from the car. On the side of the door, remove the 3 T30 Torx bits holding the door lock actuator to the door. To remove the door handle from the door, simply push backwards and then away from the door to release it. Don't forget to remove the 2 steel cables from their brackets. The next step is to separate the steel cables from the door handle. The first thing to do is release the cables from the handle, which you can do by pulling upwards in these two areas. Next, we need to slide the ball and the pin at the end of the cable out. To do this, simply push on the lock button to rotate it. This will allow you to slide the pin out as shown. The process is the exact same for the top cable as well. The final bolt to remove is this 10mm bolt over here. From the outside, push the lock cylinder inside so we can remove it along with the door lock actuator. Don't forget to disconnect the electrical connector for the door lock actuator by pushing down on the tab and pulling it out. Now we can go ahead and pull out the entire door lock actuator assembly through the access hole as shown. Here is the bad actuator that we're going to replace right next to the new one. First, remove these two small Phillips screws holding the door lock actuator in place. Turn the assembly over to the back and you can see the other screws that you have to remove as well. Once you do that, you can just slide the cover off. This exposes the bad actuator. To remove it, first pull sideways so you release it from the ball as shown, and then release it from this pin by tilting it and sliding it out. Before you install the new actuator, don't forget to lubricate the contact points as shown. I just used basic red lithium grease for this. Install the new actuator in the opposite direction of how we removed it. First, thread the thin pin through the hole, and then slide it onto the plastic ball. Install the first two plastic screws holding the actuator down, and then slide the plastic cover back into place. Now you can go ahead and reinstall the rest of the Phillips screws. Don't forget to test out the actuator assembly by pulling on the steel cables and making sure the operation is nice and smooth as shown. Now the actuator assembly is ready to be reinstalled into the car. Before we insert the assembly back into the car through the access hole, remember to pull the window sliding track out of the way. Slide the assembly in and try to line it up with the 3 holes on the side for the 3 Torx screws. Slide the metal part of the track upwards so that we can fasten it to the shell using the 3 bolts. From the outside, pull the lock cylinder out through the hole as shown. Reconnect the electrical connector to the new door lock actuator. Now we can reinstall the door handle. First, slide the handle onto the locking rod as shown, and then push the plastic clip down to secure it in place. Next, we need to install the bolt holding the door lock cylinder to the handle over here. Tighten the bolt down using a wrench. Now you can push the door handle into its spot on the door. On the inside of the door, we need to install these two 10mm bolts securing the door handle. For the bolt that is recessed on the right side, I had the best success by putting the bolt onto the wrench before snaking my hand into the access hole and then tightening it down, as you can see. The other bolt is very easy to install. Install the 3 Torx bolts holding the door lock actuator to the side of the door. Don't forget to reinstall this 10mm bolt holding the door lock actuator to the door. Push this locking tab for the window track in place, and then install the 3 10mm bolts holding it to the door. Next, we can install the interior door handle. To reinstall the two steel cables, just reverse the process that we did to remove them. First, slide the ball and pin into place, and then push the plastic down so that they get press fit and secure. To install the door handle onto the door, push downwards and then forward as shown. Reinstall the protective plastic sheet by patting it down so that the adhesive holds it, and then push this black grommet into place. Now we can go ahead and reinstall the door panel. To do this, first mount the top of the door panel onto the area where the door meets the window, and then push downwards so that it slides into place. Don't forget to reconnect the electrical connector for the puddle light on the back of the door panel. After that, give the door panel a few firm taps along its perimeter so that the push clips pop into place. Reinstall the black plastic trim over the tweeter, followed by the plastic trim around the interior door handle. Tighten down the Phillips screw followed by the little trim piece over it. Reinstall the blue electrical connector for the door control switch panel, and then push it downwards until it pops into place. Install the final Phillips screw and then the cover over it. Don't forget to reinstall these two plastic screws by pushing them in on the side. Now you can go ahead and reconnect the negative terminal of the battery. This completes the install of the new door lock actuator. As you can see, the new actuator assembly works perfectly. So that brings us to the end of today's video. If you liked it and would like to watch more of my automotive DIY content, don't forget to hit the like and the subscribe button down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.